Topper Talk podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you're looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. Welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Topper Talk podcast. We are the official podcast of the Red Towel Trust Collective, and we're also a member of the College Huddle podcast community. Really fun group to be a part of. Makes a lot of collaborations easy to do, just like the ones we did last week for the MTSU preview, and the one that we have coming up later for the Toledo preview. So definitely check that out, collegehuddle.com. You can learn a lot about our upcoming opponents from the opponent's perspective. As always, be sure to follow us on all our social media platforms. We're literally on everything, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and also on YouTube for our video episodes. And as always, I've got Tyler here with me, man. We've got a big episode, a big 100 Miles of Hate beatdown to recap, and then that Toledo game to talk about. So, Tyler, man, you ready to dive into it?
Yeah, man, let's get into it, Wolf.
But before we do that, we have to talk about the Red Towel Wrap-Up, which is our weekly recap of all the WKU athletics that we've missed since we last recorded. And as always, that is brought to us by the Trent Bedding Company. So let's get a word from Trent.
Don't forget your headboard, pillows, and your sheets. We got everything you need for a good night's sleep. Number one on the same check, best of Bowling Green.
All right. Hey! Twins, full, queen and king. Mattresses for anything. Come and pick it out and we can bring it to your house. Have you sleeping real good before the weekend's out. Trent Bedding. It's just like a mattress store. Hey.
All right, so jumping into it first, Lady Topper Golf finished second in the Cardinal Cup. Katie Craig finished first overall.
Yeah, really strong showing from the golf team. I think we expected a lot from them coming into the season. Katie Craig just doing what she does, just being at or near the top of the leaderboard pretty much every tournament. Awesome that she got that individual win. I think that was her fifth as a Hilltopper. And then the team coming in second place, they led for a lot of it. I don't know exactly how much they let go at the end, but still finishing second. That was a big invitational that had a lot of top P4, P5 teams there. So still respectable to finish second. And obviously Katie Craig, just continue to do her thing, starting her senior year off right.
Moving on, WKU Volleyball has lost 4 straight matches now, including 2 5-set thrillers to UT and Marquette, and also matches to Dayton and Illinois.
We knew that this year's volleyball team was going to look a little different. They've lost a lot of talent over the last couple of years. Lauren Matthews 2 years ago, Paige Briggs this last year. There's still a lot of talent on this team. When that schedule came out for this year, including the non-conference, I think they played 5 teams that were ranked and or played in the NCAA tournament last year. And it's just been a murderer's row of just tough opponents. The 5-set game that they played against UT at Diddle this last week it showed they can compete with anybody. And then went down to the wire, the same with Marquette. Dayton's an NCAA team. Illinois is a top team. They've just lost some tough and close matches that, at the end of the day, it's just going to make them better and prepare them for conference play, which I still feel very confident about. Once they get to CUSA play, they're not playing, top 25 type caliber teams in Dayton and Tennessee and NCAA teams, Marquette and Illinois, and just this tough schedule that they've played so far. They're cutting their teeth. They're taking some losses that we're not used to dealing with early in the season. several seasons in a row now. We've lost 2, 3, 4 games for the whole season, and now we've lost 4 in a row. But like Travis Hudson said, after that Tennessee match, what more do you need to see to be a fan of this program, a fan of this team, and these ladies, the way they play on the court and the way they conduct themselves off the court? So I'm still behind them 100%. I'll still be at all as many matches as I can. I have real high hopes and expectations for what the conference season is going to bring. So tough losses, absolutely, but still always cheering on and go Tops every day.
Hudson doing great things with that volleyball program, as always. Also, I'd like to say that the soccer team had their senior night this past week, so congratulations to the seniors on the team. And with that, that concludes the Red Town Wrap-Up, brought to you by the Trent Bedding Company.
Yep, always good stuff. Even talking about some losses, volleyball, etc. It happens, but still just nice to touch on all the sports we've missed since we last recorded. But now we get to start in and talk about this MTSU just beatdown in Murfreesboro this past Saturday, and then we're going to preview on the other side of this episode our upcoming match this coming weekend against Toledo. This past week on Saturday, we went down to Murfreesboro and we defeated MTSU 49-21 in the fabled and historic 100 Miles of Hate rivalry. I think it's always cool. They always give it a shout out and a graphic, on the telecast of that rivalry. So I think it's neat that it's getting its recognition as being relevant. WKU has now won 6 in a row in this rivalry. It's starting to get to the point where is it a rivalry? We've won 9 of the last 10. And as we record today on Wednesday night, it now has been 2,148 days since MTSU last won a game in this rivalry. The overall series record is now 38 wins for WKU, 35 losses, and 1 tie. Obviously, the biggest story coming out of this game was the fact that TJ Finley was injured on the very first offensive drive for WKU. In steps Caden Veltkamp, just like he did in the famous Toaster Bowl last year. And the offense just broke out. It just shined. We didn't miss a beat. Put a lot of points on the board. Obviously, 49-21 is a convincing victory. The defense held their own. I mean, we saw them, some bending, absolutely, gave up some yards, but had a couple, red zone stands, a goal line stand, some turnovers created, and just did what they had to do to win that game. So, obviously it's just bragging rights. We want to beat Middle Tennessee and everything. If we play checkers with some Middle fans tomorrow, guess what? We want to destroy them in checkers. But we beat them on the football field per usual. And that's just what we want to talk about and love to talk about. So, Tyler, before we jump into some of the particulars of this game, just tell me your overall thoughts on the game and how it played out.
Well, I thought the game was really good. Offense, defense, both played really good. You're right. The defense, they bent. They did not break. And watching them go, the goal line stands, and then that interception was awesome. And I did miss the first kickoff. The first kickoff of the game when MTSU thought he called for a fair catch. I guess it bounced into the end zone. He got it. Ask me, he didn't get out of the end zone, but I mean, that's the refs. I would like to say, it sucked watching TJ Finley go down and not get back up. But with that being said, I feel like most teams, whenever your starting quarterback goes down, the fans get a little worried about the backup. Well, I mean, when I knew Caden was coming in, I wasn't nervous. I thought he was going to do great, and he did it. Really played lights out. Offense was moving. It was flowing smooth. And it kind of brought me back to teams of yesteryears. And it was great that a lot of receivers got the ball. A lot of running backs got in. It was great seeing Hart out there. LT Borland, it was great seeing him being able to get that first TD since, I think, 2021, I believe, is the last time he got one. So defense really, other than a few plays whenever they slipped up, I mean, it was more or less I'm still kind of upset that that they called that last touchdown that WKU had out. My score prediction, that would have been the absolute right score prediction. The refs knew it. They wanted to screw me. They did. It's whatever. Team played great. But let's look into the individuals that made up the team, and then let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to talk about, obviously, we'll call him QB2 because he came in this game as a backup, but Caden Veltkamp entered the game, for the injured TJ Finley. Like we said, that first drive, Finley was marching the team right down the field, smooth as could be. I think got down to around the 20-yard line before that injury occurred. Caden stepped in. He went 27 of 30 for the game. That's a 90% completion percentage. That's pretty good. He had 398 total yards passing. He had 5 passing touchdowns, including also 1 rushing touchdown, and he had 0 interceptions. During the game, I don't remember what point it was, just as he was shredding them up, I said, this is Conference USA Offensive Player of the Week, Caden Veltkamp. Just predicting that, putting it out there in the universe, speaking into existence. And as we saw Monday morning, that did come to fruition. He was named the Player of the Week. He was also added to the Davey O'Brien Grade 8 list and the Davey O'Brien Watch list. He was a Manning Star of the Week recipient. So he just absolutely got a lot of love and a lot of shine for his performance. Like you said, most of us Topper fans had no worry and no fear about him entering the game. And there had been a debate and just a battle all off season. And even as this season has began about who should be starting and playing, it seems like, one of the most popular guys on every single football team that, struggling, not playing well, not playing to their best is always QB2. So we've heard the rumblings all season now through 3 weeks. People want Caden to come in. People want to see what he can do. Well, he came in. We saw what he could do. And now we've since learned that TJ Finley suffered a broken bone, a lower leg injury, had to have surgery. If you follow him on Instagram or social media in general, you saw that he was in a hospital gown and a hospital bed. You have to assume he had a surgery and he's going to be out several weeks. So for the foreseeable future, Caden Veltkamp, the Bowling Green kid, the hometown kid, as WKU Sports and Football put it out just today, he's your starter. He is now QB1 until TJ Finley is healthy. And if Helton decides to put him back in as a starter. So, we're going to find out real quick this week, though, what he's made of. This Toledo matchup that we get to preview is going to be a tough one. Now, some of the other offensive guys we have to highlight just because a lot of guys made plays. Obviously, if he throws for almost 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, some guys shined. And the first guy I want to talk about is Keyshawn Johnson, 8 receptions, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Then we also had Katie Hutchison with 2 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown. Easton Messer had 5 receptions for 73 yards and a touchdown. Elijah Young had 5 receptions for 63 yards. Our boy River Helms had 4 receptions for 29 yards and a touchdown. Dalvin Smith, he only had 1 catch for 37 yards, but he also had a passing touchdown. We threw that Dr. Pepper play in there, that double pass. We actually did it twice. First time, barely overthrew the receiver. I think it was River going down the sideline. Second time, hit it right in the breadbasket, got that passing touchdown. Then LT Sanders, he had 8 rushes for 54 yards. George Hart, 4 for 38. Elijah Young, 10 for 27. As a team, we had 35 rushes for 160 yards. End up being 150 net, taking out the sack yardage. And as an offense, overall, we had 17 explosive plays versus MTSU. That's pass plays that were more than 15 yards, running plays more than 10 yards. And honestly, I just have to give a big hats off to Caden Veltkamp, the way he played, his composure. And at the same time, I have to give just as much props to Will Friend, offensive coordinator. Didn't really know what to expect coming into this season. Last year there were some grumblings about the play calling and what we saw on the field. We saw a lot of those stacked wide receiver screens. I'm not sure that we've seen any this year that I can recall. None of those We have gone east to west, but none of those like stacked 3 wide receiver screens out to the flats. It's basically just an extended running play. Wilfred usually really utilizes a lot of the field, a lot of space, and puts guys in position to catch the ball and make plays after the catch. And Caden Veltkamp did an excellent job with his ball placement and just not setting guys up to, catch the ball and immediately be tackled. So just a really good game as far as play calling, scheming, and execution, just all around from every single position on the offense, the offensive line, the running backs, the wide receiver, Caden, and then Will Friend and Coach Helton calling the play. So just really nothing to complain about in this game. So Tyler, give me your thoughts on just this offense as a whole and the great performance that we saw versus MTSU.
Well, one play that I saw that Caden did that I first thought it was going to be terrible is whenever he was getting wrapped up and he kind of did a little 360 spin and somehow saw Elijah Young and just kind of chest passed it to him. If your quarterback makes that kind of play, that's got to fire up the rest of the team. That's got to get everyone ready to play even harder. And then you're right with his passing placements, hitting Katie Hutchinson right there for that long touchdown. I think first play after halftime. To watch Dalvin throw, do the double pass, which one time in the game I get it, 2 times. I mean that's just kind of showing off, ain't it? Now, granted, the first one was incomplete, but just the fact that you ran it twice, cocky. But no, I was kind of surprised that, you got Musa Berry only had 1 reception. Michael Matheson, only 1 reception. But you had 12 receivers who all made plays. And, I mean, that's awesome that Caden can spread the love that good. I feel like he don't just have one favorite one, but I mean, I guess you could say he does. Keyshawn Johnson, he seems to be a unanimous pick this season. Easton Messer was doing great. George Hart almost had touchdown. The pass went kind of right through his hands. Hopefully next game he'll be able to catch that and run that in. I feel like this offense though was just firing on all cylinders. They were playing, to me, a little bit faster than what they was when Finley was in. I feel like it's more of an up tempo, definitely taking more shots down the field. And I mean, it just felt amazing to watch that again. And then for it to come out versus MTSU, where it was 21-0 at halftime, and then we scored 21 points in the third quarter. I would take that 10 times out of 10 and twice on Sunday. Just a great offensive play. And for us to get 150 yards rushing, that's as a team. LT Sanders did great. George Hart, 4 rushes, 38 yards. Great. Elijah Young, I said it in the Twitter space post game. I felt like he got more yards, but I mean, then it comes down to the receiving yards where he has like 64. But like I said, it's just a great offensive game that we played and a great game plan that the coaches had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really hard to complain about the overall output of this offense. I mean, just huge yardage and plays everywhere. Then we also have to give some love to the defense as well. Only gave up 21 points. Now, granted, all 21 of their points were at the receiving hands of Omari Kelly. Some big explosive plays for MTSU themselves. And, I kind of look at it like this. They were down pretty much the entire game. I mean, they had to take the top off and take some shots downfield. He's a good wide receiver. We knew that coming into the game. He's somebody they wanted to highlight, somebody they expected to step up. When we did the Blue Raider podcast, he was somebody that he talked about. They expect more out of him. He's a good talent, and he performed. He had 239 yards receiving. That's a lot. but they were slinging the ball all over the place just because they were playing from behind. They couldn't be conservative and run clock. They had to try to be upbeat, up tempo, go down the field and get some strikes. So defense gave up some yards, only giving up 21 points. I'll live with that 10 times out of 10. I will accept that. That's going to win us a lot of ball games with this offense that we have. Now defense, obviously, there was that big goal line stand. They got down to the 2-yard line, the 1-yard line, decided to go for it on 4th down, kept trying to go up the middle on our guys and just, everybody crashing, clogging gaps, pushing their offensive line back. Upton Stout coming in, making plays, hitting the runner before he could get their momentum going forward. And then Anthony Johnson had that tipped interception, his first and our first of the season. So love to see that. Our leading tackler in the game was Devontae Matthews. He had 6. It was another game where we didn't really have a tackler that was just separated, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tackles. A lot of 6, a lot of 5 and 4, 3, etc. So just really, again, no one single person that has to lead or carry this defense. Anthony Johnson, he had 4 tackles, including 1 for a loss. He also had that 1 interception. Then Terriance Ellis, Keyshawn Swanson, and Dallas Walker each had 4 tackles. And I noticed Dallas, man, if you watch him on the defensive line up that middle, he came in early and made 1 big play. I think he had a sack early, or a tackle for loss, rather. And then the rest of the game, every time you saw him getting defended, when you'd see a replay, he was getting double teamed up front. They kind of had to respect, okay, this guy's making plays. He's a force. So I really like what I'm seeing from Dallas Walker and all those guys contributing. Then Upton Stout also had a tackle for loss and a sack. Terrian Thompson and Kylan Guidry also had our other sacks on the game. I think we had 4 total for the game. But again, we gave up some yards. Nobody's saying we played a perfect defensive game, but you can give up yards all day. Go move up and down the field between the 20s. If you don't put points on the board, though, sorry, you're not going to win the game. Sorry, Blue Raiders. 21 points is not going to get it done. So again, really excited, really happy for this defense. Tyler, tell me what you thought about our defensive effort versus MTSU.
I think defense played lights out. I do wish they wouldn't have allowed so many yards, because I think both teams had over 1,100 yards combined total offense. So it would have been good to keep the MTSU's yardage down just a little bit, but you're right. They had about 550, around 550, and they only got 21 points out of it. I mean, that's impressive in itself. The fact that they could go all the way down there to the 1-yard line, get stuffed 4 straight times, or I think from a few yards out, try to throw it, it gets picked off. The only thing that made that better was if Anthony Johnson would have ran it back for a pick 6. I thought we got good pressure on the QB. We had 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. I mean, all around we had 51 total tackles, 31 solos. I mean, that's and you're right. There ain't no one separating themselves. Everyone's all coming together. Everyone's going towards the ball, and the tackles getting spread out amongst everybody. And you love to see that. I thought defense played great, man.
Yeah, we did a really good job defensively of applying pressure from the edges, from the outside, almost kind of containing Vadiato in the pocket. And if he did try to scramble, it was going to have to be up the middle, where you had your defensive tackles there to make plays. So only a couple times Vadiato got loose. We know he's a dynamic playmaker. He's a good runner. But I think we did a really good job of containing him. Now, special teams wise, not really a lot to talk about. Not sure. I don't remember if we punted at all. I don't have the stats in front of me. Didn't think we did. Lucas Canario, 7 out of 7 on extra points. I think Easton Messer had 1 good kick return that was 20-some yards. So, just not a lot on special teams because we were just going up and down the field. We weren't punting the ball. We weren't kicking field goals. And then Canario's making his extra points. So not a lot to talk about on special teams. No big goofs and gaffes like, that Middle Tennessee blunder that you talked about earlier, where he thought he'd called fair catch and then end up returning it just barely across the goal line. But overall, man, just really, really, really impressive game and really impressive victory. I think both of us coming into this game had, pretty convincing victories. I mean, mine was a 2-touchdown victory. Yours was, almost spot on. If we didn't, watch them wave the white flag in the fourth quarter, we took our foot off their throat when we definitely could have scored again. I would have rather seen Helton punch it in, just respectfully, disrespectfully, whatever you want to call it. I was calling for that to get punched in. But he's a bigger man than me. He decided to kneel it out, take that victory formation, just get out of there with the victory. Hats off to Coach Helton, because I would have punched that ball in the end zone one more time. So let's jump into some grades for this MTSU game, this 100 Miles of Hate beatdown. 6 wins now in a row. Love to hear about it. So, Tyler, what's your grade for the offense versus MTSU?
All right, so we had 631 total yards, 481 yards of that coming through the air, 150 coming from the run game, no fumbles, we did have one fumble, no interceptions. I'm still going to give him an A+, man. I mean, like I said, great game.
Yeah, this is an easy A for me. I mean, especially if you wanted to grade it on a curve and say, man, we did 98% of that with our backup quarterback. How many other teams could put in their backup quarterback and have the type of play and results and offense and points scored that we had? There's not many in the country, and probably not any in Conference USA, that have that much confidence in their backup quarterback to come in and do what Caden Belkamp did against MTSU. A lot of promise moving forward for him, but man, that's an easy A for the offense all day, every day, man. What about the defense versus MTSU?
I'm going to give them an A as well. They came away with the first interception of the season. They did give up 514 yards of offense, but like I said, only allowed 21 points. And so defense getting an A for me.
I'm going to give them a B+++++, and that's only because of the big chunk plays to Amari Kelly. Now, we did sell out. We took some risk. We were blitzing. Took some risks and put our defensive backs in some spots where, big plays got behind them. It happens. Obviously, it didn't hurt us, didn't cost us this game, but there's going to be other tighter games where you're going to want to keep those big plays in front of you. But I'm still, like you said, like I've said now, you can give up 800 yards a game. If you only score 21 points, that's not going to win you the ball game against Western Kentucky. So, still really impressed with the defense. Obviously, there's always room to tighten up, to get better, to improve. But bend don't break will win you a lot of ball games. So I'm giving those guys a B+. What about your grades for the special teams?
Maynard, he just stayed up there in Bowling Green, didn't he? Like I don't think he even made the trip. That's a good sign though if your punter never has to see the field. And right, we had kick returners. They totaled 57 yards on 3 returns. We got 13 yards on 1 punt return. Lucas Canario was 100% from the field goal or the extra point. So I'm going to give them an A+ as well, just because that's a good all-around game from 4 special teams.
Yeah, I think Maynard went up in the crowd and was leading the pep band that made the trip. I think he just got up there and just, hey, let me lead the fight song a couple times since I don't have to get out there and punt the ball. But yeah, not a lot to talk about on special teams. Mainly you just want to talk about having good punts, making your field goals if you have those attempts. Well, we didn't have those. We didn't punt the ball, no field goals. Canario made his extra points. A couple of decent kick returns, no blunders, nothing that set us back or hurt us in the field position battle. So special teams definitely gets an A for me. They did what they were supposed to do. They did their job. What about your coaching grade versus MTSU?
Well, I feel like the coaches didn't, I feel like coaches are kind of like us. They didn't really get worried whenever they saw Finley go down. They know what Caden can do. They had a game plan ready. That or they just came up with one on the fly, which is even more impressive. Both OC and Hilton knew what to do, calling great plays. I'm going to give them an A+ as well.
Yeah, coaches had a good good plan, good execution. The offense was clicking. The defense was applying good pressure, making some plays, flying around. So really impressed with coaching versus MTSU, just knowing who your opponent is and scheming for them. So definitely an A from coaching for me. And what about your overall grade versus MTSU in this dominant victory?
I think it can't be nothing other than an A for me. If nothing, maybe an A plus, but that's tops.
Yeah, tops on tops for sure. I mean, it's an easy A. It's a dominant victory. It's a rivalry victory. It's what needs to happen every single year, and it's all Helton's done. Helton has come in and beat MTSU every single year. He's been our coach, and they had a great game plan, executed it, and the results on the field were just dominant, and that's what we love to see. Now, I also want to mention that we've now done Twitter Spaces after the game has ended. We did it after the EKU game, about an hour after the game ended, and then we did it again after the Middle Tennessee game. We see that growing in some popularity, people jumping on there, a lot of listeners, a lot of people raising their hand wanting to talk about the game. We kind of just do a mini recap, quick reactions about how people feel about the game. I really think and hope that's something that we can continue to do as we're available after games. And especially in the upcoming, when we get to midweek games, it might be a little bit tougher with our work schedules, but that's been a really fun just exercise to do. And hopefully that continues to grow as we get more consistent in that area. And just, talk Hilltopper football, man, especially when it's fresh on your brain. Those plays, those highlight moments, those low light moments, if they happen, just everything's fresh on your mind. And if you want to talk about it and you might disagree with what somebody else saw, and just talk about it. And I just think it's a cool opportunity to continue to grow, some of the things that we're doing content wise. And just, we really appreciate the people that have joined, and hope, that continues to grow as we go forward. Now, turn the page. We're going to talk about this upcoming game with Toledo this Saturday on 9/21. The game is on ESPN Plus. It's a 6 p.m. kickoff this Saturday. Toledo enters the game at 3-0. WKU is 2-1 on the year. This is the first ever matchup between the two schools. The betting line opened with Toledo as a 1-point favorite, and now that line has moved to Toledo at minus 2.5, so a 2.5 point favorite. The line is shifting. Does Vegas know something we don't know? I don't know. But the over-under is currently at 62.5. The ESPN matchup predictor really likes Toledo at 64.1%, with WKU only having a 35.9% chance to win this game. Toledo's tough. We knew when this game was scheduled, it was a sneaky good game. It's a tough opponent. They won 11 games last year, 11 games in a row, end up losing their conference championship game and then their bowl game. They're ranked in the top 25 at one point. And then just this past Saturday, I think it's no secret by now at this point, leading up to the game, just a few days away, that they beat an SEC team on the road in Mississippi State. And they didn't just beat them. They dominated them. There was no question about it. It kind of reminded me of our game when Ty Story was at quarterback and went to Arkansas and just drug them up and down the field. It was just never in doubt. Went in there, took care of business. They're supposed to be SEC, and just won that game. And it's surprising to some people, maybe casual football fans, but Toledo is a good football team. There's a lot of talent on that roster, and they return a lot from their 11-win team last year. They had some turnover just like everybody does, but it's still a really, really good football team, and they're 3-0, and they're the betting favorite. So, Tyler, before we jump in to this Toledo preview, what are your thoughts on this game coming up this Saturday?
I think this is going to be a fist fight. I just think this is going to be a really good game. Both teams come in. They can score a lot of points. I think that over and under, I was looking at it and I was like, ooh, I think I know what I'm going to put, but I ain't going to say nothing on here. ESPN, come on. That's just disrespectful. We're playing at home. I know they won 11 games last year, But this is my Tops here now. We're playing at home, playing Houchins. It's kind of a hard place to win. But I especially hope everyone comes out and cheers on the Tops. I seriously hope it's a sellout, because this being loud, being obnoxious, being rowdy, that's all going to help the Tops get to a victory. That's one thing about college athletics, is the fans definitely help the home team, definitely help give it a great environment. So I think both teams are going to be ready to play hard, to hit each other, and let's beat that team from up there in Ohio, man.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention in the lead up to that is that it is Parents and Family Weekend this weekend on the Hill. So, expecting a good turnout for that. It's always one of our better attended games to go along with homecoming. Looking forward to the weather. We're looking at like an 84-degree and sunny, so warm but not hot game at kickoff. And then obviously as the sun sets, it'll cool off and just be perfect fall football weather. So really, really, really looking forward to this football game. Like you said, it needs to be pushing a sellout. We have been pushing on Instagram and on Twitter to buy your tickets, to go, to be aware of who this opponent is. Toledo's a very good opponent, even if you're not familiar with MAC football or who they are, how good they are. This is a really good football team coming into Bowling Green, Kentucky. We have a return game at them next year. So, again, that's a trip that I hope to get to make, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be, like you said, a fist fight. It could be a street fight between the whistles. Call it what you want to call it, man. It's going to be a tough, drag-out game that could come down to the wire. There could be a lot of fireworks, just a lot of scoring on the field. So I'm excited to see these two teams match up. And, to talk a little bit more in depth about Toledo and what to expect from their football team, I guess we got the help of one of our fellow College Huddle members that we talk about in our intro, that represents the Toledo Rockets team. We got Dan Rocketman from the Midnight Blue and Gold Launchpad to join us and talk about Toledo football. So let's jump to that interview right now. All right, and we're joined now by Dan Rocketman from the Midnight Blue and Gold Launchpad podcast, which is also a fellow member of the College Huddle community of podcasts that we often talk about being a part of. And to go check out those other member sites, it really makes these type of collaborations just really easy, really seamless to just hook up and get to know each other, get to talk about our teams, and just get more familiar with the opponent. So Dan, we really appreciate you joining us, and welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Proud to be on. I've been listening to you guys all summer just because of that huddle. I was like, we play Western Kentucky. Let's see what the preview's like just getting in the stream of things as far as like July and August, but nothing else is going on. So glad we could finally make this happen, and hopefully we can have you guys on our show later in the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I feel like we've been tipping our hand too much. You've been listening to previews all summer. You know too much now. But honestly, I think that's what it's all about. Just getting more familiar. We're big fans of the Phil Steele magazine. I, kind of did the same thing just via that magazine. I read about all of our conference mates, all of our future opponents, on the schedule this year out of conference, and obviously wanting to get to know more about you all. So that's why we have you on. So just talking about you and your podcast, I guess. First, introduce us to yourself a little bit. Tell us about you and your fandom. What got you following Toledo football, and then what also got you into the podcasting side of things.
So I'm 30 years old. My story is very deep. My last name is Savage, which is what the basketball arena is named after at Toledo. So my Aunt Kelly played basketball there. She was a great hooper. Grandfather through my dad. We're just a big Toledo family. I've missed 2 home games since the year 2000. So once I was 6 years old, been going to home games. I've missed one for a wedding. I missed one for like a homecoming dance in high school, and that's it. And then in college, I worked for the football team. I did sideline, end zone camera, stylistic video, all that stuff. So I know Jason Candle. I don't know any of the players anymore, but basically a huge fan. And then even in college a little bit, I started a group of 5 podcast called the Great 5 Podcast. And mine didn't last very long. It was only about a season and a half, and it was, between doing homework and stuff like that, like I was trying to put out episodes with a terrible laptop mic, and I found my way here with the Midnight Blue and Gold Launchpad, just talking enough online. They're like, hey, come on for an episode. And then luckily they kept me on. So I'm here now, and I'm excited to talk Toledo football.
Man, that's awesome to hear about your journey and everything you did, and that you're a diehard Toledo fan. That's awesome. Let's start at the top of it. Jason Candle, your head coach. He's been there 9 years, 68-35 overall record, including last season when he had a great 11-3 season. Seems like he likes to win a lot of games, and he's good at it. But what has his tenure at Toledo been like?
So he's been on staff since 2008 or I think 2009. It was Tim Beckman came in, and then after 2009, 2010, Toledo's been bowl eligible ever since. He was a wide receivers coach. Matt Campbell from Iowa State took over. He wasn't at Iowa State yet, but he took over, and Candle was promoted to quarterbacks coach and then offensive coordinator. And then since the bowl game in 2015 against Temple, Candle was the interim and then took over, and his first 2 seasons were really good. 2016, I thought the team was even better than 2017, but Western Michigan was a Cotton Bowl team that year, so kind of ran into a buzzsaw. And then the program dipped a little bit. A couple of years of near 500 play. People thought that he might not be the guy. He was just coasting on the success of Matt Campbell. And ever since the COVID season, he's ramped it back up. Plenty of NFL caliber players have come through here. I think we've got a few more on this roster, and the culture, grade point average, everything is at peak. Fan support, I mean, it's about as good as it's been since the Gary Pinkel era in early 2000s.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely remember watching last year, when you all, I think you lost your opening game, if I recall correctly, and then you rattled off 11 victories in a row before losing the last 2, I think the MAC championship game and then your bowl game. But just obviously a really good team, top 25 ranked, I believe, at some point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But, just the natural turnover of college football with the portal era and just obviously NFL guys and just eligibility being exhausted, there's a lot of roster turnover coming into this season. It's, nobody expected that 11-win team to be duplicated this year, but, what would you say were the expectations for the 2024 season before this year began?
Well, I mean, we did our season predictions, and most of us on the podcast had a 9-win basement. So actually the schedule's fairly weak, to be honest. You had Mississippi State, who was looked at as winnable. You guys are going to be tough. And then the other 2 tough teams were supposed to be Miami of Ohio and Bowling Green, and they're both at home. So really, we came into the season going to be favored in 10 or 11. And so that's kind of where we think we should be again. And it's the perfect season to do that while the playoff is a possibility finally for a MAC team. And then you have Northern Illinois knock off Notre Dame, and all of a sudden it seems like the MAC might have a chance if they can just add a couple more victories as a conference whole together. So, I thought we'd be good again. I think that it's vastly overrated the players that we lost, as far as like, oh, you lost a 4-star. It's like, well, they were a 3-star here. And we brought in the middle linebacker, Lance Dixon, who was the number 1 overall linebacker in his class in the nation. And he's only a 3-star now. So it's not like Toledo doesn't have talent. It's just that the rating sites don't want to call it talent anymore. So I think the roster is pretty dang good.
Sorry about that. I had some trouble hitting that unmute button. Now, the season has obviously started off very well. You had a dominant win over Duquesne and UMass, and then an absolute just demolishing of Mississippi State, 41-17 this past weekend. Plus, you got the $1.2 million payday, which is always great to get. But what have you learned about this team through 3 games so far?
To be honest, I didn't learn much from the first 2 games at all. We played coy. I think that's why Mississippi State didn't know how to stop us because I don't think they saw any of the schemes that we were going to run against them from the first 2 games of tape. So we got outgained by 100 yards against UMass. That made us think that, okay, 5 new O-linemen this is really going to hurt us. And then we had one of those O-linemen not start against Mississippi State. And that was like, oh God, here it comes. And it was smooth sailing. I mean, that was a name your score adventure, to be honest. We even fumbled the ball through the back of the end zone. We sat on it in the 4th quarter, and that game should have been 58-17 or 58-10 or something. So I don't know. I'm going to come off as cocky because of my fandom, but I really like this roster. I really like what I've seen, and that's pretty much only based off of last week's game. And Mississippi State might not even be that good.
No, I understand exactly where you're coming from, because I feel like, obviously our schedule, the way it's set up, we played Alabama right out the gate, the first game of the Kalen DeBoer era, and just didn't know what to expect with Alabama, but we knew they were still Alabama. We knew that basically they were going to hang as many points on that scoreboard as they wanted. Didn't really learn a lot from that game except for the $1.9 million they paid us. And then when we played EKU, kind of again the same FCS team. We just didn't have to show all of our cards and our full offensive arsenal to beat them. And then I think that showed last week when we beat MTSU fairly convincingly, even with a quarterback change. Just still an easy kind of a coasting victory that kind of leads itself into this big matchup that I'm, have been looking forward to for a long time since it was announced. Obviously, as last season finished up, it looked even more intriguing. And now this season, us coming in 2-1, you all 3-0, with an SEC victory. They're supposed to be SEC, regardless if they're good or not good. The resources and talent there should be deeper than us, but you all handled them quite easily, quite frankly. Like you said, you left points off the board, slowed it down, just let the clock die and let them, lose at some mercy, I guess. But I'm really impressed by the offense of Toledo, averaging 42.6 points per game so far through 3 games. So I guess, highlight at least 3 of your offensive players that, Western Kentucky Hilltopper fans need to know and be aware of where they're on the field, ready to make plays against our defense.
I think the quarterback, Tucker Gleason, he's been in the program for 4 years now. He was a highly recruited kid, I think a top 30 quarterback in the country when he was recruited to Georgia Tech. And he's been in the program a couple of years ago. He had to come in when DeQuan Finn was injured, and he stepped up big time. We lost to our rival that year, but he played with a broken left hand. The dude's a gamer. He's 6'3", he's 250. He's a big boy. And I think with the way that we schemed it up last week, he's got no problem sitting in the pocket and finding open receivers. So he'd be my first guy to pay attention to. He also hasn't thrown an interception this year. So if you guys want to find your way to make up the margins, forcing him into trouble situations or shifty defenses where you can confuse him would really help Western Kentucky get a victory. The other 2 guys are really, really speedy wide receivers. Jerwan Newton, he's a 6-year guy, could be a draft pick. He's like top 5 in the nation in touchdowns right now. And then the other one is Junior Vandeross, who's actually leading our team in yards, and he's in the top 15 in the country in touchdowns right now. Those are the 2 guys that really, we've just schemed them basically wide open. And once they have the ball in space, they're gone. So if you're going to stop us, the run game hasn't been what we wanted it to be yet this far. So you're going to have to stop the wide receivers. And those are the 2 that have been the biggest impact players for Toledo so far.
Now let's flip it to the other side of the ball. Your defense is only allowing 16.7 points per game, which is impressive. Who are at least 3 guys from that side of the ball that WKU needs to know about and plan for?
The defensive line we played 10 guys last week and had 5 sacks. I think just as a whole unit, no matter who's back there, we've got some really, really good players. Darius Alexander is probably our mid-round pick there. I think he's 6'4", 315 in the middle. He's a tackle. He's been really good at stuffing the run. Mississippi State had 7 yards of rushing offense in the first half last week. So he's a guy, if you're going to want to push somebody around, you got to find a hole away from Darius Alexander because he's a beast. In the very back end, we've got 2 more players that we think could be draft picks. Maxon Hook, who was actually a Reese Senior Bowl guy last year, but he hurt his knee and he actually wasn't healthy all year. So he thought he'd come back for his last year of eligibility from the COVID. He's a huge playmaker. He's the guy with the headset call on defense. He's kind of looking at it from afar and telling players where to go. And then his buddy back there, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who kind of is following the footsteps of Quinyon Mitchell, really fast. I think he's our leading tackler to this point in the season. Also a safety, so he kind of can get the newer defensive backs that we have in our team to replace a guy like Quinyon Mitchell. He can kind of help them out and show them where to go. And although Toledo's pass defense hasn't been perfect, having 2 veterans back there is really helping us at least keep the play in front of us and make sure we don't get beat over the top too bad.
You know, it's kind of crazy as I hear you breaking down the roster, because one, you talked about you have a big quarterback, and we've got a 6'6" guy. Our other guy was 6'7". You talk about you got some shifty, fast burner wide receivers. We've got a plethora of those. And then you're talking about your guys on the back end on the defense and some defensive tackles that are disruptive. I hear so many similarities between these teams. It's kind of crazy. Like it really is. Obviously, our SEC games have been, very different how they played out this year, but just the teams and the talent on the field, man. I think, man, this could be a really fun game. I'm really looking forward to it. Now, Tyler and I, when we do this full episode, at the end of it, we'll give our keys to victory, what we think our team needs to do to, come into this game, what we need to execute and do to get out of there with a victory. So we'd love to hear from your perspective. What does Toledo need to do? What 3 things would you say they need to do to come into Bowling Green, Kentucky and leave with a W?
Number 1, I think, would just be to shut out the noise. You start to get votes in the AP poll. You're the Cheez-It All-American Team of the Week or whatever. I think the guys and the culture is pretty good to, minimize all that stuff, but it's a back-to-back road game. It's not going to, once you start winning these games, there's nothing you can do, but you just have to think that you're, positioned to be the better team. So you just got to block that out right now. Think about that later in the season when, there's actually something on the line if you're 10-0, God forbid, or something like that. 2, I think, would be to tackle. Middle Tennessee did not tackle you guys at all. You were running regular screens, and then, it was horrible. So, as far as...
It was raining, too. Mention that.
Okay.
It was raining.
Okay, well, it rained a little bit in Starkville, too, I think. So I don't know if that's just a position bad on Middle Tennessee State or not, but you guys have got a lot of small dudes with a lot of speed. Toledo's going to have to keep them in front and tackle because, you guys had a screenplay that should have gone for 0 yards and ended up being a touchdown. So those are the plays that are going to matter when Western Kentucky and Toledo are pretty evenly matched. And then the last thing would just be Tucker Gleason has no interceptions yet. 9 touchdown passes, 0 picks. You can't turn it over in a hostile environment on the road. That goes without saying every game, but Toledo, especially when we had DeQuan Finn, you kind of just had to accept that he was going to make bad decisions and then he would make it up with his legs, and how tough it was to game plan a dual threat quarterback like him. But with Gleason, he can run, but he wants to be a pocket passer. You can't give free possessions to Western Kentucky.
Yeah, because I know WKU has Russian QBs have kind of been our Achilles heel last season and starting into this season a little bit. But next question is, how well do you expect the Toledo crowd to travel?
I think we'll travel as well as, maybe Ohio or Miami or even Ball State are a little bit closer to you guys, but we've got a big win now. We won't have the Florida parents and stuff like that there. It's not quite close enough for all them to make the trip like they probably did to Mississippi. But I expect, 250 to 500 fans. This was all of my friends were waiting, let's see what we do against Mississippi State. If we really want to make this trip, if we get blown out, we'll probably, we'll save the gas money. But this is should be nice weather. I expect a good Toledo crowd.
Well, good. And I hope you and your friends get to make it down there. Me and Steven will be happy to help out anybody who comes with food, parking, recommendations, anything. Just hit up the DMs at Topper Talk on Twitter.
Absolutely, we will do that. I'm sure the barbecue down there is good. I'm sure that the beer flows and the whiskey, goes down nice. So we'll be partaking in all that come Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely open to giving recommendations for anything and everything that some Toledo fans making the trip. We want all the visiting teams to come and have a good time, leave with a loss in their back pocket, but still have a good time between those 60 minutes and the tailgating. And I'm really looking forward to a good Toledo crowd. I think, one, you've been historically a really good program for a lot of years now, including last season specifically, and then so far early this season. I think that's only going to just add to the people that might have been on the fence about making the trip. 5-6 hour drive. I'm looking forward to them coming. I can't wait for it. It is Parents Weekend here on campus, so I'm expecting a pretty close to sellout crowd. If we don't get there, I wouldn't be surprised if it's pushing over 20,000. But I'm really excited for the atmosphere. And what I've seen from the weather, it should be, like you said, it should be a good weather, sunny game, not too hot, not quite, fall cool yet. So looking forward to that. Now, we can't let you get out of here without giving us a score prediction. So how do you see this game playing out?
Well, so I don't have to be offensive to either our listeners or you guys. We predicted all the games, most of the scores in August before the season started. I'm just going to stick with the same score. I think it's possible, coming into this game, we knew that you were coming off of 2 rivalry games and we were coming off of a road trip to an SEC team. So it's not like you guys could look ahead to us or we could look ahead to you. So it's a pretty balanced schedule thing. Now, I know that it's really tough to win the back end of 2 back-to-back road games. Before the season, I said we were going to win 31-28. I could really see that being the score, flip-flopped either way. But I'm just going to stick with that just so I don't have to be a flip-flopper. But I expect a really good game, and I expect points from both teams.
Coincidentally, 31-28 was my exact score prediction. Obviously, my red goggles has Western Kentucky winning. Tyler was near that same score prediction. So and honestly, when we do our full episode, I probably will modify mine just because we both have scored more points than I expected offensively. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit higher scoring affair than that. But really looking forward to the game. I appreciate you joining us, Dan. Please let us know and our listeners know, where they can find you and your podcast on social media, and obviously listen to you all hopefully leading up to this game and find out more about Toledo.
Yeah, you can find us on all listening platforms and YouTube. Our YouTube is for our Zoom calls, this style of video, and we usually put out just an audio only once a week on Spotify, Apple, places like that. Socials, follow us on X at MBG Launchpad. The Midnight Blue and Gold Launchpad podcast. I'm Dan Savage _live if you want to follow me. I'm on socials quite a bit, propping up this game, trying to get the fans fired up. So can't wait to come down and meet you guys. And I really appreciate you guys for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you for joining us. And obviously we're looking forward to linking up Saturday, have a couple cold drinks and some good tailgating and food. And then, for 60 minutes, we'll see what happens on the field. I think both of us are expecting a tough game. So looking forward to it and appreciate you for joining us, man. Have a good night.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Really awesome interview. Just always good to hear from an opponent's perspective, how they look at this game and this matchup, and just what may be strength versus weakness, and just, I think they kind of see it like we do. They think it's going to be a tough slugfest of a game. They're hoping and expecting to bring a really good contingent from Toledo. It's about a 5.5 hour trip drive. Said the football team's flying in, so just a quick trip for them. But we really hope to see a good contingent of fans from Toledo in the house. I think that always makes it for a better game environment Then obviously, like we said, being parents and family weekend, we expect the home crowd to be really loud, really present, wearing your red, wearing your white. Just be here, cheer on these Tops, man, because we're going to need all the energy we can in the stadium for this game this weekend. So now we've got to jump into our keys to victory to beat this Toledo team, because as it stands right now, we're the underdog. So, being at home or not, we've got to come in and we've got to prove ourselves versus this undefeated Toledo team. So, Tyler, give me your first key to victory versus Toledo.
Now, first of all, you see, we can call it whatever we want to. I'm going to call it a slobber knocker from the WWE days. But first key to victory is can't let the Toledo players, unlike we did with the MTSU players, the playmakers get behind us on in the DBs. We definitely got to keep them in front of us and try to eliminate as many big plays as we can.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, as we were talking to Dan, just talking about the teams, I really think there was a lot of similarities between these teams on both sides of the football, from the skill positions, our quarterbacks, the defense, the secondary being the strength of the team. I think both of these teams are really, really talented. Obviously, we played a tough Alabama team and lost that game in not great fashion. But since then, we've turned it around, and I think we're playing much better football now. My first key to victory is I think we need our quarterback one, our first-time starter, Caden Veldkamp, starting his first game since December of 2021, as he stated in a recent post-practice interview. It's been almost 3 years since he started a football game as the quarterback one. His 2 appearances have come in relief versus ODU and this last week versus MTSU. So I think we need Caden Veldkamp to continue to be what he has been in those 2 games, which is an efficient and productive and spreading the ball out quarterback. He's not making any mistakes. Not saying he can't make any mistakes, but he's not throwing multiple interceptions, fumbling the ball, putting us in second and third and long situations. He's just been really quick with his decision making, his passing, been super accurate, and just letting his offense do what it does. Because when Tyson Helton is known for having very creative, very efficient, very pass happy offenses, Will Friend has come in and just continued that. And we just need Caden Veldkamp to be the straw that stirs the drink. He's shown he can throw the ball. We're not taking a ton of deep shots down the field. Most of these are intermediate or short passes that turn into big gainers because of the ball placement, the scheming, the wide receiver separation, etc. So we just need Caden Veldkamp to come in and do that. Don't let the lights get too bright for him. Don't let the game or the situation get too big for him. And he's proven that's not a situation, a factor for him, in a neutral site game, bowl game, or on the road versus MTSU. So I feel like at home, with potentially a lot of Bowling Green Spartan natives there cheering him on, his first ever start in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I think we're in for a special treat, a special environment. And we just need Caden to go out there and just do what he does. Be QB1. Lead his team to victory. What about your second key to victory?
I want to say win the battle in the trenches. We can't let our offensive line be getting pushed back into Caden, and we can't let our defensive line not penetrate and not try to get pressure back there on their QB. We definitely can't let their quarterback sit back there, camp all day, set up a dinner table, put out the drinks and the plates, and eat a meal before our guys are able to get back there to him. And he can run. He does. He's capable of it. But I feel like he is much more comfortable passing the ball. So we definitely got to get back there, put some pressure on him. Maybe not flush him out, but definitely rush him, or at least make him hear the footsteps behind him.
I think my second key to victory is going to be to continue to establish the run game like we have the last couple weeks. The Eastern Kentucky game, over 100 yards. MTSU, 150 plus yards. I think our running backs are really good. I think Elijah Young is, the bell cow by far. He's an explosive player. He can also affect you in the passing game as well, which we saw more so versus MTSU, 60+ yards receiving, almost 30 yards rushing. So just his all-purpose ability, can break a game or a play open at any time. LT Sanders and George Hart and Jalen Hampton have all been productive when they've been in the game. It's always nice to have a stable running backs, keep some fresh legs in there, keep you off pace, not sure what you're going to do if it's a running or a passing situation. So feeling really good about our running back situation in that room. But I think we need to continue to be able to show that we can run the ball. We can get those tough yards. We can make you respect that running back coming out of the backfield at times for pass plays. So continue to run the ball and just show that that is a threat of our offense. Tyler, what about your third key to victory versus Toledo?
Set the tone early, come out, hit hard, run harder, let them know who and where they're playing at, and we're going to be the aggressors.
Yeah, very well said. I think starting fast is going to be important. That's not my third key victory, but I think starting fast, if we were doing 4, starting fast and scoring early would be definitely my fourth one. But I'm going to say, and this is cliche, but I just have to say it because you can't come into these type of games and turn the ball over a ton. And I know it seems 101, it's 100 level, but we can't have 2, 3, 4 turnovers versus a Toledo team, that's scoring over 40 points a game. Like we said, our preview with Dan Rocketman, they're only giving up 16 points per game. It's just not something we can do. We can't come in and let an offense that is really good and can score a lot of points have extra possessions and us have empty possessions. So we have to take care of the ball, versus both interceptions and fumbles. We have to finish drives with points, whether that's field goals, whether that's touchdowns, whatever it is. We can't turn the ball over and give Toledo a short field, let that momentum swing to them. We just can't do it. And I know that's easy to say and very cliche because it's a very, you can say that every single game, don't turn the ball over. But ball security and just finishing possessions and drives just absolutely has to happen. I think that's elementary for any football game, but especially a game where you're the underdog on paper and they're a tough opponent that you have to respect. And that's what Toledo is. They're a good football team, potentially top 25 caliber football team. They're playing and winning, good games. So take care of the ball. And I think the rest will take care of itself because I'm really confident in what our offense and what our skill players can do. Tyler, who's going to be your MVT, your most valuable topper versus Toledo?
Dang, I know who I should say, but that's the easy way out. I'm still going to do it. Caden Belkamp. I feel like he has come out. He has made great passes. Like I said earlier, he can, and this week he's going to have to set his players up to succeed. He's going to have to hit them guys in space, hit the playmakers in space, keep the defense guessing which receiver he's going to go to. Keyshawn, keep doing great things. Dalvin, keep being the senior leader that we need. Keep it going out there on the field. Throwing touchdown passes whenever your number's called. Catching the touchdown passes. It'd be dope if he could do both in one game. That'd be really cool. But definitely, I'm going to ride with Caden for another week.
Well, I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball because I have picked the quarterback for one game. I picked TJ Finley. I picked Keyshawn Johnson for the Middle Tennessee game, if I recall correctly, and he had a pretty good game. So I'll take a W on that one. I think it's going to be a lot of expectation and a lot of pressure on Caden Belkamp in his first game starting in Houchins-Smith Stadium. So I'm going to take a different route. I'm going to go with Elijah Young as my MVT. And I think that's mainly because he can impact the game, not only running the ball, but catching the ball in the backfield, being that relief valve for those short to intermediate passes that can turn into big plays. And he can also break a lot of plays in the run game. So I think Elijah Young having a good game and a good productive game, just well-rounded, not just only rushing the ball for 100 yards, but potentially receiving the ball for almost 100 yards. He can be that all-around guy that really takes a lot of pressure off your quarterback if you're just trying to lengthen and extend drives. We just talked about Toledo and scoring 42 plus points per game. Well, if you're out there with the ball on offense, their offense is not on the field. That's an easy way to slow them down a little bit, keep them on the sideline. I think Elijah Young can be that guy to help us do it. Caden Veldkamp's going to need his skilled players to step up and make plays and just make his life easier. I think we saw that versus MTSU. He didn't have any huge, miraculous pass play throws that, were like, wow, look at this guy. He had players making plays when they got the ball in their hands. And I think we need to continue to see that. And I think Elijah Young is one of the most versatile players that we have on that side of the ball. And I think he could be a difference maker. So I'm ready for it. Give me Elijah Young as my MVP. Now, Tyler, what about your score prediction? We had our preseason score prediction. That could change, obviously. You don't have to stick to it. Who do you got winning this game? How does it play out in your eyes? Muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, in that first one, it was like, 28-17, I believe, my score prediction. I think I'm going to go up with it a little bit for both teams. I think Western's going to win it. We're going to score 49, though. We're going to hold Toledo 38. So 49-38. Tops win. You win. We lit, baby. Houch is going to be lit.
Baby. 49-38. That is a fun game. That's a big one. That's an 11-point victory, though. That's still a nice spread coming in as the underdog. So my preseason prediction was 38-28. WKU winning by 10. I'm going to modify that. I respect both teams. I think we left points off the board versus EKU. We left points off the board versus MTSU. And I think Toledo has a tough defense and an efficient offense as well. I think this game is going to be closer than what I predicted originally. So give me WKU still winning, but give me WKU 38 and Toledo 35. So a field goal game. I don't know if that's a game-winning field goal. I'm not going to make any type of prediction like that, but I think WKU winning by 3, flipping the script, coming in as 2.5-point underdogs and winning by 3. Give me that. I think it's definitely doable. I think we have the team, we have the steam, and it could very well be Darrell Western's day. I think it could happen. I've not seen anything to make me believe that this offense can't go out and put up enough points. It's really going to come down to that defense. Bend, don't break. If they give up 35 points, they gave up 21 to MTSU, it's doable. I definitely think this game is winnable if we play the game that I know we can play and are capable of playing. But, man, I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, this is a big game. Even if it doesn't mean anything to our conference championship hopes and how this season ends, it's still an out-of-conference game that is a tough opponent. People don't realize how good Toledo is. Like we've said several times, this is a really, really good Toledo football team coming into Bowling Green, Kentucky, that's going to want to come in here and do what they did to Mississippi State, quite frankly, just want to embarrass them and put the game away and go back home with a victory and be 4-0. But we have to prove that we have just as much talent, just as good of coaching, and just the offense and the defense that can stop them and show that we can be the better team. And I think that's certainly possible. Vegas doesn't know everything. They get games wrong every single week. 2.5 favorites means nothing to me. Give me this team, give me Caden Veldkamp, just the team rallying around him and behind him, just seeing how they played and uplifted him versus MTSU. Just imagine that energy when we're in the Houch. I expect this to be a really fun game to attend. Just I think it's going to be tightly contested. I don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. I think both of these teams are very capable of putting up a lot of points, but I think the defenses are going to be tough on both sides because our offenses are so dynamic on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a street fight. It's going to be a knockout fight. It could come down to who has the ball last, quite frankly. Who can make one more play than the other team. And I'm going to ride with my Hilltoppers. I have no reason not to. The last 2 weeks I've gotten that sour Alabama 63-0 taste out of my mouth. Don't even remember it. Never even happened. That was a whole different team than what we have right now because Toledo's not Alabama. No Conference USA team on this schedule in front of us is Alabama. We've shown that what we can do offensively, and the team that we have can win a lot of football games that we have left on this schedule. So I'm excited for it. Really looking forward to the Toledo tailgating environment, the game environment, and obviously celebrating that win after the game. So Tyler, give us your final thoughts and take us the heck out of here.
Yeah, just to echo what you said about Toledo being a sneaky good team. I mean, if they got guys on both offense and defense who are going to go to the draft next year, could be drafted or at least sign a free agent, not drafted free agent deal. I mean, that says a lot. And I mean, yes, it is in Ohio where nothing good is from, but I mean, them boys are big, they tough, and I feel like they're going to try to run a lot more. But I know by what Dan said that their QB likes to hit that pair of wide receivers. So we definitely got to keep them in front of us. Bracket them, do something, try to slow them down, because if we keep letting them make plays like we did Kelly, I feel like this is going to be a tight game if we do that. I would like to win by 11 points, but I would win by 1 point if it comes down to it, because I mean, yes, this game means nothing to us in our conference, but at the end of the day, this is just about being bragging rights and just about being the toughest team and the tougher team. So yeah, I hope everyone's able to come out there. I hope everyone's able to cheer on the Tops. I am fighting allergies. That's all this is. It's not COVID. It's not some kind of sickness. I've been trying to breathe and talk at the same time, so that's why I'm sounding a little different. At least I'm not fighting for my life like I did last season when I couldn't talk at all. You remember that, Stephen. That was a hard podcast. But, I mean, as sports fans, what more can we ask for? A good – I mean, this game is slated as the top G5 non-con game of the season. And that's by the talking heads on TV, not just by me. What more could we hope for as Western fans, and to show off and to play against one of the best teams in the G5 ranks? I will say that at home on a beautiful Saturday evening, bring your friends, bring your kids, bring your dates, tailgate, party, have fun, get to the game, be loud. Cheer on the Tops. And with that, let's go kick some butt, y'all. Moff, who has it better than us, bro?
Nobody, buddy. You know it.
Nobody. Go Tops.
Go Tops. Later, guys.
See you.